Welcome back for another video, guys. We're going to get the little lawnmower trailer ready for some action. We're going to remove some of the ashes away from the burn pile down there, and naturally got to air the tires up. This thing doesn't see a lot of use throughout the year, but I'm noticing now that my tires are starting to dry rot and different things like that. So we've got a cure for that, right? Everybody knows about this stuff. And get a little bit of this in the tires. There's a couple of holes and different things in here I want to look at and maybe weld up. But convenience about this trailer is the fact that it's a dump trailer. And so we're going to drag this thing behind the mule and pick up some of those ashes here in a while. Okay? Let's start with the tires. Now, for those of you who don't know, Fix-A-Flat, it's a wonderful solution rather than having to either break this tire down and put a tube in it or replace the tire altogether. But a couple things you should know in case you haven't dealt with this stuff. Shake it up real good before you get to it. Again, this is just Fix-A-Flat. I always keep this stuff on hand because if I'm busy in a job down here that I'm doing on the farm, I don't want to have to run to town to get some of this stuff if I gotta have it. Make sure it's shook up well, and always remove your valve stem out of the tire before you push this stuff into the tire itself. First of all, it makes it easier for the Fix-A-Flat to get inside the wheel. So just pull the valve stem out. And the smaller cans almost always have a valve stem remover in case you need one. Now be very careful with your valve stem after you get it out of there. You don't want to lose that dude. And they are small, okay? But anyway, bring this up close. Again, if you haven't seen one before, if I don't drop it, oh wait, they are small, but that's what a valve stem looks like, and it just threads down inside of the stem itself over here, okay? Bring it in a little closer so you can see what I'm doing. All right, so we have our valve stem out. Now I'm going to take this, and again I've shook it up well. I'm just going to slide it right over the end of that. This plastic gets brittle, but probably going to do, I don't know, 6 or 7 pumps in there. If I can get the pump to work. Let's see what I got going on right there. That kink in the line. Now we got it. Like I said, let me put you down there and show you what I got going on there. I had a kink in the line, and that's why it wouldn't let the Fix-A-Flat out there. Slime. But about 6, 8 pumps, depending, you know, how bad the hole is, or again, now what I've got here is some dry rot around the edge of this tire, and it is tubeless. So I'm just going to go ahead and before I air it up, I'm put some of this in there, and hopefully that'll solve anything that I don't see. Okay? And you got to be careful with this stuff. You'll have it over the shop floor if you're not real careful. Again, our valve stem, that guy's pretty small. Now we're just going to thread that back. We don't have to over tighten it. Just get it in there. Get it snug back up where it belongs. Okay. Now, with this holes, what I do before I put the air in there is go ahead and spin this around a little bit. Get that on the inside of the tire moving. Make sure it gets slung out all as far as you can. And then we're simply going to air the tire up. Alright, these tires hold about 30 psi. We need a little more. And this is one of those tools that I have not had a lot of use out of, but when I do need it, it's convenient to have it. This thing's been sitting out for a while, so I want to be careful here because introducing air to these tires that's been sitting for a while, make sure we don't have a problem there. I don't hear anything leaking. Now again, this will sling itself around. I know most of you guys are familiar with how this stuff works, but as you're rolling this across the yard, it's going to help spread that stuff around too and seal up any of the dry rot. Right here would be a really good example of it if the camera's picking that up. And again, it doesn't take much for one of these tubeless tires to be losing air. So that should fix that. I'm going to do the other side just like that. Always let that drain down and back into the valve stem itself before I put the internal part in there. That way it doesn't glue itself shut. And then just tighten it up. Alright, we'll do this one just like the other side, spin that around a little bit. Okay, let's put some air in it. This stuff's been sitting out in the cold too, so going to give it a little bit of time to do some expanding here. I'll tell you guys a funny story. I was airing up the wheelbarrow tire and checked it with the gauge, 30 psi, just like I'm doing these tires. I rolled it out of the shop here, and as soon as it hit the gravel out here, the tire exploded. It almost broke the window out of my truck. It bent the wheel over to the side, and I couldn't figure out for the life of me what had happened, why that tire would blow like that. Well, it turns out my air gauge was bad, and it's hard telling how much air I actually had in that tire. Now the gauge said 30 psi, but I got a feeling there was a little more than that in there, and it pushed the gravel out from underneath it, probably about 2 or 3 inches deep. Quite the show. All right, let's check this. But good point here, just be safe. You never know specifically. Now you start getting into truck tires and things like that, the explosion's going to be a little worse. So, not a big deal, but just be careful. And like I said, these tires have been sitting out for a while, so I'm airing them up pretty slow. Alright, that's got us a 30 psi according to this gauge. Show you guys real quick after I'm done, because again, now this is a gallon, this is $30 or $40, so I don't want to waste this stuff. And I just take a piece of black tape and loosely fold that back around this hose to store it. That way it's not allowing itself to drain down. And just show you how I put this stuff back up, because again, you'll have this stuff everywhere if you're not careful. As far as the hitch goes, towing behind a lawnmower, this short distance is not going to hurt you at all. It allows enough distance for this to be turning, even if you got it almost to a jackknifing situation, you're still probably not going to get it into your lawnmower. We're going to be using this on the Mule, so therefore I need to extend this and get it away from the back of the machine a little bit better. First of all, it'll back up easier for me and it'll allow me to see it. And what I done is I took a piece of this is 1.5 inch square tubing, and then welded it into a piece of 2-inch pipe in order to catch up my difference. Now, if you have a piece of 2-inch tube steel, you're fine. But I just simply put this in the vise and mash this down a little bit. It fits into the receiver perfectly, and it adds about 2.5 feet to the length of that. Zoom you back there so you can see. And that allows me to get that back in behind the mule. And actually, I built that. We used to have a Yamaha Rhino side by side before we got this mule, and it worked fabulously on the Rhino. So today will be the test to see how it's going to do on the mule. Now, one thing to mention again about the receiver before we continue on, I also welded this piece of flat steel on the front and drilled a hole simply in order to get the pin down into it. Okay, this can be lightweight. These trailers are designed, because it's a dump trailer, it's crazy hard in order to get too much weight in the front of it. Everything wants to continuously go to the back of the trailer. That way you can dump it. So I wanted to explain that to you before we went any further. Like I said, this is just simple. You guys do it however you choose to. Alright, let's get this guy out of here. Like I said, this can be lightweight because you're truly dragging the trailer more than you are carrying it. Okay, I'm gonna have to squeeze that in a little bit, which will not be a problem. Give them a little bit of love with the hammer. Can't cure. Alright, now if anybody asks you if you can get a round object into a square hole, just tell them to get a bigger hammer. That's how the old saying goes, right? Or at least a big anvil. Alright. Got that part of it. Should be more than fine. I think we're going to be set, guys. I gotta say, guys, it doesn't look too bad sitting behind the machine. Everything looks pretty good, doesn't it? If you're gonna shovel this stuff, it's always better after a rain. That way it's not real dusty and you can control a little better. looks like the little hitch is going to work out just fine for the little red wagon behind the Mule. Spread it okay, it wasn't bad. You wouldn't think about it, but you can even use the ash after you've burnt all. If you're clearing property, after you get everything burnt down and condensed into a pile like I had down there, if you spread that back out across your soil, by the time you've done your project, you're probably going to have some really rich soil that you'll appreciate a year or two down the road. Okay? I hope you enjoyed the story about the wheelbarrow tire exploding too, because I still find that one amusing. I hope this has been helpful for you in some way. I appreciate you watching. I'll see you on the next video.